American fiction, for the most part, is dominated by four main genres: guns, western guns, superhero guns, and guns on boats, which you may know as pirates. However, I feel like that just completely missed the video game market, as the only pirate games I can think of are Assassin's Creed Black Flag, Assassin's Creed Rogue, which I'm pretty sure was sort of pirate, Atlas, though I don't remember that one being very good, Pirate 101, which was definitely bad because you can't play it anymore, and the Jack Sparrow movies got a Lego game, and yeah, that's about all I can think of. So that brings us to the year 2018, where Rare, now owned by Microsoft, blessed us with a new pirate game, Sea of Thieves, and people really hated it. Now, I am a little late to the party since this game was made back in 2018, and here I am talking about it in 2023, but I've played the game on and off a little bit, but I only really got into the game about a week ago. But I do think I've learned all that I really need to know. The basic premise behind the game is that you're, well, a pirate, and that means you hunt for treasure. So you take your ship out, sail the seas, collecting riches beyond your wildest dreams whilst fighting baddies from dawn to dusk. Now, that sounds like a great time, and trust me, it certainly would be if you actually did those things. However, in Sea of Thieves, you sail, find a box, bring the box to an outpost, then sail again, then find another box, then bring it to another outpost, and then you sail yet again, and then, listen, if Sea of Thieves was an accurate representation of what being a pirate was like, then it's no wonder that they all retired. It had nothing to do with the law being brought to the seven seas. No, it was something much worse. Pure, absolute boredom. Now, I'm going to rip into Sea of Thieves here because this is a game that I want to like. I want this to be the ultimate seafaring adventure. And what makes me mad is that all the fundamental pieces of that adventure are here. But even after 5 years, Rare has almost kind of tapped into that potential a few times. Now, Sea of Thieves, first and foremost, is a pirate-themed game. So no matter what tasks you choose to take on, you're going to be doing a lot of sailing. And by God, this is legit the best sailing in any game I have ever played, period. Your ship is big and it has weight to it, so it takes time for you to master how it controls. There isn't just a button to go. You have to raise and lower the sails, all while fighting the waves and storms of the sea. It's probably the most fun that you could have sailing a ship in a video game. Now, there is other stuff as well. Since you're gonna have a lot of downtime while your ship sails, once you get on course, you can do other things like cook, or take a nap, or get completely wasted on rum, or play sea shanties on a variety of instruments. There's a drum, a banjo, an accordion, this thing, which apparently is in fact a real instrument. It's called a hurdy-gurdy. It looks like a violin with buttons and is incredibly expensive. Now, hear me out. I know all this is completely pointless and has absolutely no gameplay function, but I will never get tired of listening to Flight of the Valkyries while my ship's sails are beautifully catching in the wind. Now, occasionally you will run into enemies while on the open waters, which will more than likely be skeleton ships, a megalodon, or the Kraken. To defend yourself, your ship does have cannons. More cannons the bigger your ship is, and so on. However, using them is a massive learning curve, as the drop of the cannonballs along with the momentum of your ship, and also you have to consider what kind of cannonballs you're using, it requires time and patience to master. This is also something that makes being a solo player pretty hard, since you're going to have to switch between sailing your ship and firing constantly, which can admittedly get pretty overwhelming. And that's not even adding how your ship's health works, because your health is indicated by how much water your ship has taken on. Once you've been hit, holes will appear, which you have to patch up and then dump the water out. I actually really like the way they handle this, even if it does get pretty archaic at times. And that's about the ship combat in the game. Thankfully, NPC enemies aren't particularly hard, so it's not too difficult to gain the upper hand against them. However, that being said, there is a pretty prominent PvP scene in this game, as any loot on your ship is ripe for the taking from other players. I've yet to engage in PvP a lot. 1, because I don't want to, and 2, because anytime I do interact with another player, it's a drive-by attack when I'm not even on my ship, followed by many cool gamer words, and then ending with me patching up my ships because no one ever stays to finish the job. Now straying away from the naval combat, combat on foot is honestly pretty basic. You have 4 weapon types, of which you can have any combination of 2. There's a sword, pistol, blunderbuss, and the Eye of Reach, which is just a sniper rifle. The melee in this game is simple, but it gets the job done. But because it lacks depth, it's not often that you'll be dueling anything with swords. For the most part, combat is a mix between gunplay and some melee, or sometimes just dual wielding different guns if you choose not to use a sword at all. However, I do think that having a pretty simple melee combat system is actually the right move here, since anything more complex would have made the game into a medieval battle simulator. On the surface, it would have been cool for sure, but I do think that the game would have become too punishing to learn. However, even with that outlook, it is hard not to want more from it, since movies tend to portray pirates in these epic bouts of strife, dueling with cutlasses. But here, I do feel like I'm just flailing around with a wet noodle here. There's no weight or anything to the combat. Now, that isn't to say that it's necessarily bad, it's just kind of shallow. The guns are, well, guns, with flintlock firing mechanisms. You have 5 shots until you're out. These work fine. They aren't overpowering, so the melee isn't totally pointless. However, they are slow, so you do have to set yourself up to use them. The only issue that I have with the guns in particular are how some reskins will cover up the center of your screen, obscuring what you're actually trying to aim at. At the very least, this isn't an issue with the Eye of Reach since you have a scope, which does have a crosshair in the form of a cracked lens, which is a nice aesthetic touch that I really like. It makes it feel super authentic. Now, all of that seems pretty okay overall. It's certainly not stellar by any means, but it's pretty fun until you realize that this is all the game really has. Quests are really nothing more than short side activities that you can get from either vendors or bottles buried in the sand, but that's all there is, at least for the core part of the game. There is a story mode, kinda, but I do want to touch on that later. A breakdown of the main seafaring loop is that you get a map, then you sail to a specific location, fight some basic enemies, locate treasure, and then you bring it back to an outpost. And that's it. That's the main attraction here. Fetch quests. These stay fun for about an hour. The sailing is good, traversal around the map is fun, and using your navigational skills while on islands to track down exactly where a chest is buried is legitimately my favorite part of the game. But after the 4th or 5th time, you'll see almost about everything the quests have to throw at you. And it's not until you do a bit of reputation grinding to get different flavors of these fetch quests. But even then, after a while, they just become a list of chores. It gets to the point where the most exciting thing about these is bringing a ship full of loot to an outpost, because there's always the danger of other players attacking and stealing your stuff, which is actually challenging to deal with. And to make matters worse, the only thing you get out of any of this are cosmetics. These chests and quests will get you gold and doubloons, and sometimes even ancient coins, this game's version of a premium currency. But the only thing these do are just let you buy outfits. Which, yeah, it is something to work for, and I do definitely prefer this formula over everything being paid for in a rotating shop. But there's nothing to work for once you get an outfit that you like. Nothing. There is also reputation with different factions that can be leveled up, but all that does is just give you different flavors of fetch quests that just give you more gold, which, like I already pointed out, becomes pointless after a while. Now, I do know that the alternative to this is that your in-game currency is used to buy upgrades and kind of making the playing field uneven, but I can't help but feel like that's still a better alternative, because then you have some tangible progression, some payoff for your time. However, do you want to know why I'm still playing this game even after gold has become completely worthless to me? Because it helps me sleep. That's what this game is contributing to my life. An alternative to melatonin. Honestly, it baffles me how this game could do a better job of putting me to sleep than keeping me awake and engaged after a few hours. Then again, I don't want to make that sound like a completely bad thing, because really, that's just me really complimenting how good the sound of the waves are and the gentle soundtrack. However, we'll say this all goes right out the window once you're attacked, but that happens so rarely it's not an issue. Another problem I have with engagement in the game is that every season there's a new, more complex and involved set of quests, which are genuinely a lot of fun to complete, but they're limited time. Why? Like, okay, stick with me for a second. Could you imagine how much more fun this game would be if Rare just left all these quests in the game for an unlimited amount of time? That would easily multiply the hours of unique content that this game would have and would give players something to do. And nothing says this better than the Pirates of the Caribbean crossover. This is the story mode that I was talking about. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a crossover. You go through a few steps that mimic the movies, there are puzzles, fun combat situations, all over the span of 5 chapters that took me around 6 hours to complete, which, mind you, was genuinely some of the most fun I've had in a pirate-themed game. This crossover story mode took the best parts of what Sea of Thieves had to offer and proudly put it on display. And it sucks that this is the exception to an otherwise mediocre seafaring experience that didn't need to be that way. The only thing that it doesn't show off is the exploration. And you know what? The exploration's really good, as finding new caves and visiting islands for the first time is fun. Exploration is fun. Unfortunately, that exploration will end pretty fast, because soon you'll just see all there is. And it's not like there's any quests or anything to try to revamp or rejuvenate that sense of exploration in areas you've already been to. Now, listen, Sea of Thieves is a game that I really want to like. It has a lot of really solid pieces here. They nailed the naval combat. The art style is extremely unique and one that only Rare could have perfected. And the game has the capacity to tell amazing stories. But unfortunately, there's just so little to do after the initial burst of content. But the game keeps expecting you to want to keep playing. So, listen. If you don't get into the PvP element of Sea of Thieves, playing this like a 15-hour single-player adventure is probably the best way you can approach the game. Exploring and seeing everything for the first time, coupled with the Pirate's Life tie-in campaign, makes for a really great, short, and solid experience. And honestly, I'm okay with the game just being that. I can't help but feel that they missed a really big opportunity to make Sea of Thieves the best pirate game that it could have been. And as it stands, the only time I'm gonna revisit this game is 1, if I want to hear the gentle sounds of the waves, or 2, I just want to go sailing. But with all that, thank you all so much for watching. If you liked the video, then press the like button, subscribe if you want to see more of my incoherent rambling, and let me know what your experience with Sea of Thieves has been. And as always, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next video.